Welcome to LiveDaf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem, welcome back to today's Daf, BECHOROS Daf Talmud. We are holding out the Mishnah, which is on Gimel Beis, 2 lines off the bottom. Now, we know that in the Midbar, Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu to take account of all the Leviim. And the total was 22,300. And the Leviim were designated instead of the Bechorim. As the Pasuk says, L'kachta as ha-Leviim li, designate the Leviim for me, for my service, Ani Hashem, Tachas kol Bechor b'Bnei Yisrael, instead of the firstborns amongst the Bnei Yisrael, who up until that point were the legion of Hashem. They were the representatives of the rest of the nation. They would bring the karbanos, etc. So now the Leviim were designated in their stead. Likewise, the pasuk continues: Ves behemas haLeviim tachas kol b'chor behemas bnei Yisrael. Right, this is in the beginning of Bamidbar, right, Paragimel, that the behemoths, animals of Leviim, again, they represented the behemoths, the bechoros of Bnei Yisrael. So instead of granting the bechor of the Yisrael's animals, the bechor of the Leviim animal was designated instead. And that exempted the Bnei Yisrael, who now no longer needed to be paid their human bechorim or to give away their animal bechorim. There's a question of whether it refers even to the kosher animal bechor. There are 3 categories of bechor. There's the bechor adam, human bechor, the firstborn son. You have to redeem it for 5 selah to the kohen. We have the peter chamar, the firstborn donkey, which is redeemed with a seh, goat or sheep, which is given to the kohen. We have the Bechor behemah tahira, firstborn kosher animal, which is again given to the kohen, and if it's unblemished, brought as a carbon. So there's a shaila of whether Tesis learns that the Leviim also exempted the Bnei Yisrael from offering their firstborn kosher animals. Rashi says it only relates to the Pedar Chamar. In any case, the point is that Leviim were designated in lieu of Bnei Yisrael. So they now became the new designees instead of the Bechorim, who were considered outstanding and special and servers of Hashem. This was certainly something which was highlighted when Klal Yisrael left Mitzrayim. Right? Hashem says, I designated the Bechorim for me because they were saved when Makas Bechoros took out the firstborn Egyptians, and the Bechor of Bnei Yisrael were saved. They now became committed to Hashem's service, designated as Hashem's people, and eventually the Leviim took that slot. Okay, so the Leviim exempted the Bnei Yisrael. They represented the Bnei Yisrael in this context. Says the Mishnah, Kohanim Leviim. Now, when we speak about Leviim, of course, it relates to Kohanim as well, who came from the Shevet Levi. So Kohanim Leviim, Peturin Mekal B'Chomer, they are exempt. Exempt from what? In the Gemara, it will seem that the Mishnah meant to say exempt from what we're talking until now in the Perek, Pidim Petach Hamar. So if the Kohen Levi has a firstborn donkey, no need to be concerned about it. He's exempt from any halachos of Pidim Petach Hamar. Why? Based on logic, Mikal B'Chomer. Look, in Patras Shal Yisrael B'Midbar of the Leviim, and we're understanding this to mean that the humans, the Leviim, the Kohanim, the people, could serve as an exchange. They can address, they can exempt by their very being, by their being designated for Hashem. They now exempted. They came instead of in Patras Shal Yisrael, the firstborn donkeys of Yisrael by Midbar Dinu. Certainly, they exempt themselves. They exempt their own Bechor status. Dinu Shiyif Shalatzman. Right? So if they exempt the Bnei Yisrael, the Midbar certainly their designation as servers of Hashem absolves them of referring to the Bechor element within them and addressing that separately. Okay? Says the Gemara, really? Is that how it went? If you look in the Psukim, it seems to be a little different. Inu Patri. You mean that the Leviim themselves, the people of Leviim, they exempted the animals amongst the Bnei Israel? If you look at the Psukim, it would seem that it's human for human and animal for animal. Adam, the Leviim, humans, Adam, Patar, they exempted the humans amongst the Bnei Israel, the BECHOROS, and it was the Behema, the animal of the Levi, the set that he owned, that was considered a de facto exchange. Behema Patron exempted, addressed the firstborn donkeys amongst Bnei Israel. Behema Patron. Look at the pasuk. Kachas Levim tachas Bnei Israel. Levim themselves, the humans, were taken instead of the Bechor Bnei Israel, and vehes behema havim tachas behem. The behema of the Levim came instead of the behema of the Israel. So it wasn't humans to animals, it was humans to human, and animal to animal. Amar Abaye. You're right, the Mishnah is not referring to the human Levim. The Mishnah means like this. The animal of the Kohen and Levi is potter from halacha of Bechor, because if it took care of the Yisrael in the Midbar, certainly it's self-exempted for all time. From the Midbar, the Behemah of the Levi took care of the Behemah of the Yisrael, Dinu, certainly it would make sense, should have kias shalatzman, that it would take care of its own self, meaning the animal of a Levi is exempt. Amalei Rava, Vapatru Inu Ketani, says Rava, look at the literal wording of the Mishnah. Mishnah says, Impatru Asher Yisrael B'Midbar. Apparently we're speaking about the Levi himself in human form, not as animal. Furthermore, V'oid, Im Isa. If what you're saying is so, that the firstborn donkey of a Levi is exempt because of this Kal V'chomer, Afilu Mibchar Behema Tahir Niftaru. So the same exact analogy could be applied to the firstborn kosher animal of a Levi. If it had the ability to exempt the Yisrael, certainly itself. Alam Atanan, so why do we have in a Mishnah later in the Fiat Gimel, Lo Niftaru Mibchar Behema Tahira? Elam Epidin Haben Petach Hamar. There's no exemption for a Levi. For his firstborn kosher animal, that has a din of Bechor, which goes to the Kohen. Elam Epidin Haben, Petach Hamar is only exempt from two things. Pidna ben, of his firstborn son, and Petach Hamar, for his donkey. Elam Rava, says Rava, I'll explain to you what the Mishnah means to say. The Mishnah actually is not referring to Petach Hamar at all, rather only to Pidyon Haben, the human Pidyon. V'achitani, Mishnah means like this. Kohanim Ulevim, Peturin, Hein Atzman. The Kohen and Levi is potter from Pidyon Haben. Mi Kal V'chomer, based on Kal V'chomer. Im Efkiyah Kedushasan, Shel Levim, Kedusha Shel Yisrael B'Midbar. If the Levi with his status represented the Yisrael and exempted the Yisrael, the Bechorim amongst the humans in the Midbar, Im Efkiyah Kedushasan Shel Levim, Kedusha Shel Yisrael B'Midbar, Lo Yafkiyah Es Atzmon. Certainly, it could exempt itself. Meaning, he's already designated for Hashem. He need not address the Bechor aspect within him or his sons. So according to Rava, the Mishnah is speaking strictly about Pidyon Haben, the human Pidyon, the human Bechor. No Ashkan Adam, so we've established that Levim are potter from Pidyon Haben. Behema Tmeya Min. What about exempting them from Pidyon Petach Hamar, firstborn donkey, Min Olam Hakra? There's a pasuk which links them. It's all or nothing. Amakro, Ach, Podoi, Siftes, Bechor Adam, redeemed the firstborn son. Ves Bechor Behema Tmeya, Tifn, the first donkey. And we link the two. Kol Sheyeshna Bechor Adam, one who is obliged to redeem his firstborn son, such as all of us except for the Kohanim and Levim. Yeshna Bechor Behema Tmeya, likewise, he is committed to the halacha of pidyon petach hamor, but otherwise not. V'chol she'enim b'chor adam, a Levi or a Kohen is exempt from b'chor adam. Likewise, Einoi is also not connected to b'chor b'hem atmei, and therefore is exempt from both. Okay, so at this point, what do we have? We have Rava, that the Mishnah is speaking strictly about b'chor adam, and b'hem atmei is learned by way of a linkage. We have Abaye, actually the Mishnah is speaking about b'chor b'hem atmei and exempts them based on Al Chal V'chai. I have a question on you, who says that if the Levi's, Seh, exempted the Yisrael's Chamar in the Midbar, certainly can do it for all time. So it's based on what happened in the Midbar, right? And likewise, according to Rava, if a Levi, as a person, could exempt the b'chor adam in the Midbar, likewise for all time. So it's hinged on what happened in the Midbar. So I have an interesting question. That works if the Levi today was one who had a seh in the Midbar, but let's say he didn't have a seh in the Midbar, so he wasn't really covered by this system. So then he doesn't have the ability to exempt himself. I mean, if it's based on the fact that he exempted one in the Midbar, let's say he didn't own an animal. Next question, let's say a b'chor adam was less than 30 days old in the Midbar. So Levi was 2 weeks old in the Midbar. He didn't have the ability to exempt the Yisrael. So you mean to say is chayiv and pidyon haben further on? According to you, the Amos says, behemtam, that the Mishnah is exempting the animal of the Kohen and Levi, because if you could exempt the Yisrael, certainly he himself is self-absolved, right? Behemtam. So Ben Levi the Havli said, Ben Levi who happened to own a seh in the Midbar, the Afka, who actually, right, went ahead and exempted the Yisrael Livka, so then for all time he becomes exempt as well. But let's say the Levi said Livka, let's say he didn't own an animal in the Midbar, to actually, actualize this exemption upon the Yisrael. So he wasn't a part of the system, like Livka, so then his firstborn donkey is not exempt. And bein l'didach ubein l'Rava, and whether according to you or according to Rava, who exempts a Levi and Kohen from the pidyon haben of b'chor adam, based on the fact that they exempted the b'chor of Yisrael, only if he did so, if he was old enough to do so. Ben chodesh the Afka, if the Levi was a month old, in which case he was covered in this, account, and he was involved in that exemption system. Livka, so now he should be self-exempted as well, because if he did so for him, certainly for himself. Let's say he was less than a month old, in which case he was not included in the count, and he didn't exempt the Yisrael. So he wasn't involved in the system. Livka, do you mean to say that when he grows up, he's not exempt? And it's really not so, because we know that all Levim were exempt. Third question, number 3, Leviah. What about a female Levi? A woman from a Levi family who married a regular Yisrael. Loitivka, her son should not be exempt from pidyon haben. Why? Because only the males were included in that, in the count of 22,000. And it's not so. Amar Avadabar, we have a halacha that even a Leviah, a female Levi, Shioda, who gave birth, her firstborn son is exempt. Says the Mahalei Kasha. This third Kasha can be easily addressed. Like the Mar Breder of Yisrael from the Ravi quotes Rava, the Amar Petarech. Look at the pasuk describing the firstborn son. It relates to the mother, released by the womb. Ve'Petarech Tal Rachman. It depends on the rechem, whose rechem it is. And since it's from a Levi family, he's exempt. And we'll see in a minute. It's based on the fact that the Gemara in a minute will tell us that the whole class of Levim were exempt. We don't differentiate between this and that. So once you have that established, as to the question of male female, well, that's not a relevant factor, as long as you belong to a Levi group. And really, there's another kasha before we come back to tie everything together. Kasha number 4, but Aaron HaKohen was never even counted. So he never really took part in this crossover and this exemption. He wasn't really counted there. So you mean that he's not exempt from b'chor. You have a brayso. Lama nokad al Aaron sheb'chomesh hapkudim Chodesh HaPekudim is Parshas Bamidbar, where they counted. So there it says, Asher Pakad Moshe v'Aaron. The word Aaron has dots over it. Dots diminish. They indicate shrinkage of the literal meaning, which means to say, Shelo Yehoya B'Ois HaMinyan. He was exempted. He wasn't included in that count. So he wasn't included. He wasn't counted on to exempt the Yisrael. If he didn't exempt, how could he exempt himself? If it's all based on each other. Oh, Makro. Here comes one answer for everything. Pasuk says, Hashem designated the Leviim in lieu of the firstborn in Israel. V'hoyoli ha-Leviim. Last word in the pasuk, ha-Leviim. All the Leviim are in the same boat. Hukshu kol-Leviim zel. They're all connected to each other. We don't differentiate whether you're a month old, less than a month old, whether you're counted or not counted. It's all one and the same. Whatever happens to them happens to you as well. One last question: what about Kehanim? We're dwelling on Leviim, but Kehanim are not being mentioned here, and they weren't really counted together with. So, at that point, there were really only 3 Kehanim: Aaron and Lozavi Summer, and they were part of the Amram family. So really they were included, but the Chazon Ish explains, but let's say a Kohen was less than a month old, or didn't have all these elements, didn't have a set. So how do we know to include the Kehanim and sort of give them a blanket exemption, just like the Leviim? Because Kehanim and Leviim are synonymous. The term Leviim, we'll see, is a reference to Kehanim as well. We don't differentiate. Okay, so that's the question. Kehanim and all. How do we know to exempt all Kehanim as well? Answer: K'der Rishum Levi. Don't Rishum Levi be'esrim v'arba mekayimais. Look throughout Tanakh, you'll find no less than 24 locations that nikru Kehanim Leviim. The term Leviim is a reference to Kehanim as well. V'zeh echad mehen. For instance, in the pasuk in Yechezkel, Kehanim Leviim, Bnei Tzaddik. Bnei Tzaddik were the Kehanim, and they were called Leviim, Kehanim Leviim. So the same exemption that applies to Kehanim regarding Pidin Haben, Pidin Badachamar applies to Leviim. To Leviim applies to Kehanim as well. L'doros Minola. Fine. So we established that the Kehanim, Leviim, and the Midbar were exempt based on the pasuk, on the Kal V'chomer. But what about for all time? For future generations, are they exempted as well? How do we know? Amakra v'hoyo li Leviim. V'hoyo li Leviim. V'hoyo is something of permanence. Ba'aviyasa, in their status, they remain forever. So the exemption continues on. Ask the Gemara. We were working on a notion that the seh of a Levi was considered a de facto exchange for the chamor of the firstborn donkey of the Yisrael. How do we know? We might have a seh. How do we know that the seh of the Levi did the trick? Maybe it was the chamor of the Levi that did the trick. We assume that it's consistent with later generations. We know that in the future, right, L'Doros, how do we redeem a firstborn son? With money, 5 shkalim. And likewise, in the future, how do we redeem a firstborn donkey? With a seh? That's the, all-time system. Nemar kesef L'Doros, v'nemar sel L'Doros. Ma kesef am L'Doros. Just like the monetary method used regarding Pidin Haben for all time, that was the same system used in the Midbar. By Padul L'Doros, this money was used L'Doros. By Padul L'Shah, likewise, it was used to redeem the leftover BECHOROS, right? Remember, there was some discrepancy there. The pasuk says that there were 22,000 Leviim that could be used to represent the 22,000 Bechorim. But thing is, there were 22,273 Bechorim amongst the Yisrael. What happened to 273 left over? Pasuk says, for those they had to make a real pidyon with 5 slaim. Right? So it was the same system. that applies in general, applied at that point for the leftover Bechorim. Likewise, a system employed exchanging the Patachama, which is the Seh, used L'Doros. Likewise was employed at that point, meaning, although the Yisrael did not have to set aside a Seh, because it was the Seh of the Levi that would exempt it. Ask the Gemara, who says you can compare the two systems? Maybe money has an advantage, and that can be more impactful than a Seh. Money can be used to redeem Hegdish material, Maser Sheni material. So that's why it was used L'Doros, used in the Midbar, but perhaps the Seh system, which doesn't have this advantage, was not used in the Midbar. Elamakra, rather we have a pasuk which tells us likewise, Ach Padai Sifte, Es Bechor Adam, Ves Bechor HaBehemat Me'atifte. The pasuk says he meant to redeem the firstborn son, the firstborn animal. So we make that linkage. Ma Bechor Adam, just like by the Bechor Adam, Lo Chilakto Bein L'Doros Bein L'Yisashah, regarding Bechor Adam and the method employed in redeeming the firstborn son, i.e. the money. We don't differentiate between future generations or the Midbar. Bekesev, and both it was done with money. Af Bein Matmei, likewise the donkeys. L'Tachlik Bein L'Doros Bein L'Yisashah B'Seh. No differentiation between later generations or the Midbar. It was a Seh used to exempt it. In this case, it was the Seh of the Levi, which took care of the Chamor of the Yisrael. Amar Rab Chanina. Here's an interesting halacha. Seh Echad Shel Ben Levi. Did they have to match up the numbers? Meaning, let's say the total amount of Sehs in the Levi's possession were a smaller amount than the firstborn donkeys by the Israelim. Did the numbers have to match? No. So Echad Shel Ben Levi, even a single Seh belonging to the Levi, can address a zillion patar, would exempt Kama Pitri Chamerim Yisrael, many firstborn donkeys amongst Israel. Amar Abaye Teida. Says Abaye, I'll prove to you that it's true. Sharamana Kosav Oitim Ba'adam, we find that there was some leftovers by the human count, because, like we said, there was a 273 discrepancy, which had to be addressed separately. But we don't find any overflow by the donkeys, despite the fact that the members of our nation were way more numerous than the 22,000 Leviim. Assumingly they had many donkeys. So why weren't we trying to match up the numbers? We don't find any mentioning of leftover numbers by the Behemah. Apparently, it's because one Seh of a Levi can address many Chamer. How do you know this is the reason? Maybe Israel didn't have many animals, so there was no issue of overrun. Like that, we can't say that. The pasuk says, Reuben had many animals. Okay, but still, many can be many, but we're talking about addressing merely the firstborn. Who says there were so many firstborns in proportion to the the animals by the Leviim? Even so, maybe Pshutim the Leviim, the regular non-firstborn Seh of the Levis, were a perfect match in terms of numbers to the firstborn Jewish donkeys. So maybe there was no issue of mismatched numbers. Amakram, that's what we have. We have a pasuk which tells us that it doesn't have to be 1-to-1. Amakram behemas haLevim, so a single behemah of a Levi, tachas behem tam, instead of the many behemas of the Israel. Behemah achas, one behemah of a Levi, tachas behemas harbe, took care of many behemas of the Israel. Behemah rabba. Perhaps the term behemah is not single; it's just referring to the class. Behemah rabba, like we have in Yaina, behemah rabba, many animal. Right, the animal family is called behemah rabba. So sometimes singular refers to many. So when it says behemas haLevim, who says it means one? Maybe it means many to many. Imkain, because if the pasuk were to mean that, it would match the terms. It would say single, or double. It wouldn't say single and many. The pasuk would say oy behema tachas behema. Either it would say behema of Levi instead of behema of Israel. So it would mean many to many. Oy behem tam tachas behem tam, or many to many. Why would it switch in the middle? My behemas tachas behem tam. It says behemas Levi instead of behem tam of the Israel. The single to the many. Shma mina. Apparently, the pasuk is teaching us a point here. Chad patar tuva, that even a single animal of a Levi can address many. Amarava, you know what? It's old news. We have it in the Mishnah. Suppose the Yisrael took a seh, exchanged it for his firstborn donkey, and gave it to the Kohen as required. The Kohen says, look, I'm not an expert animal raiser, have it back, I'll sell it back to you. Yisrael can take it back and reuse the same animal, recycle it, to redeem another chamar, because it has no kedusha, it's a monetary commitment. He gave it to him already. He bought it back, he can reuse it. It's not like, a truma, once it's made truma, you can't designate it as truma again for another crop. It's been saturated with kedusha, it's already, filled. But here, it's just a monetary issue. I gave it to him, he gave it back to me. So, likewise in the midbar, what should hold us back from using one Seba Levi to address many Chamarim of Yisrael? There's no limit on that. Rabbi Chanina, time Masisim Mafarish, you're right. Rabbi Chanina was simply explaining. You're wondering why? How could the Mishnah allow us to recycle the same sheep? This is what he meant to say. My time, I know the Mishnah. I know you know the Mishnah. I'm explaining to you the Mishnah. How could you use the same sheep to redeem many donkeys? How could you recycle this? Mishum deseh echashol ben Levi pater kama pitre chamer shel Yisrael. Because in the midbar, that's exactly what happened. They took one set to address many. So we see that if there's an allowance to do it, then it works. Itzmar. Speaking of which, what happened if Yisrael had a firstborn son in the midbar? Was there a kedusha? Itzmar. Rabbi Yechon Amar, yes, kadshu bechoros b'midbar. The concept of bechor, by humans, by animal, applied in the midbar as well. All 40 years. Rish Lakish Amar, no way. Loi kadshu bechoros b'midbar. In the midbar, there was no kedusha of bechoros. The Gemara will explain in a minute. Of course, it did apply to the group of Yisrael that left Mitzrayim. But the next, generation was exempt from bechor. It only was activated when they entered Yisrael. Rabbi Yechon Amar kadshu bechoros b'midbar. In the middle we have kedushas bechora. Rachmana Amar lekadshu. Pasuk said so. Upon leaving Mitzrayim, it says kadosh l'gal bechor. All firstborn will have kedusha. We assume that once the system was activated, it maintained itself throughout. Rish Lakish Amar, no way. Loi kadshu bechoros b'midbar. There was no kedushas bechor in the middle. Pasuk says once you enter Eretz Yisrael, you'll activate the kedushas bechor. Once you enter Eretz Yisrael, apparently there's no kedusha in the midbar. So prior to entry, there was no kedusha. Esrei Rabbi Yechon Rish Lakish. Says Rabbi Yechon, have a kasha to Rish Lakish. There's no kedushas bechor in the midbar. There's a Mishnah in Zvach, which says like this: before the Mishkan was erected, you could have bamis, private altars, public altars. Now in the public setting, who took care of the service? The bechor, firstborns. They were considered designated for Hashem's service. So clearly, in the midbar, we're talking in the midbar. Bechor had kedusha, unlike your opinion that there was no bechor in the midbar. Amar lei ba'osin just in Mitzrayim. Certainly, the ones that left Mitzrayim had kedusha and they maintained that kedusha. But I'm speaking about the ones that came about later who did not have kedusha as bechor. I'll prove to you that we're talking about a fellow that left Mitzrayim because otherwise Ben Shana. You see, this was strictly the first year after they left Mitzrayim, because afterwards they already had the Mishkan. So the Mishnah is talking about, the Mishnah is addressing only 1 year. Now, if he was just born, he's barely a year old. How could you suggest that he does service in the Bama? Ben Shana, barely a year old, my bar mevet avodah. Who is he capable of doing avodah? Evidently, we're speaking about an older fellow who left Mitzrayim. Of course, he has kedusha. That's a pretty obvious answer. The Ka'arla, the one that posed this question, my Ka'arla, what was he thinking? He meant to ask like this: because certainly, if you accept Rabbi Yechon's opinion, kedushas bechor maintained itself throughout the midbar. For firstborns born in the midbar as well, so that would justify Hanach de Mikar Nami. So the ones that left Mitzrayim initially and had kedusha, then Nami lepal kedusha would explain why their kedusha never left them. They maintained their kedusha because the system was active in the midbar as well for those born later. Eli Amros the pasuk kedusha, but according to Rish Lakish, who says firstborns born in the midbar, we're not covered by the system. We're not kaddish. Hanach de Mikar Nami. So even the ones that left Mitzrayim as b'chorim, Nami lepal we should assume that the kedusha dissipates because the system was deactivated. So the fact that the Mishnah alludes to a bechor, true, He left Mitzrayim, but if the Bechor still maintains his Kedusha, apparently it was an active system, even for currently born children or animals. V'idach. Rish Lakish responds, no. Once you have it, you have it. But it was not introduced anew to the new crop. V'idach, the Kaddish, the one that had Kedusha prior, maintains his Kedusha. The Loi Kaddish, but the ones that did not have Kedusha at this point, they haven't left Mitzrayim, they haven't gotten that Kedusha. Loi Kaddish. The Kedusha was not activated on them at this point. Here comes a kash. So once again, Rabbi Yochanan to Rish Lakish. We have a brayso. Oisei hayom shukam Mishkan. The day that the Mishkan was erected, right, the first of Nisan, right? Karvelam Yisrael. So what type of karbanis were offered on behalf of Yisrael? All kinds. All kinds of donations. Chatayis v'hashamayis. BECHOROS. Okay, that's the key word here. BECHOROS, firstborn kosher animals, which were karbanis. Umasris, and maser behem as well. Clearly, there was something called Bechor with Kedusha in the Midbar. Oh, Chanami here as well, boys, just in Mitzrayim. We're speaking about the Bechor that left Mitzrayim. Which even I agree, says Rish Lakish, that it has Kedusha. And we know. So now, we can actually twist around the equation and support Rish Lakish's opinion. Because it says, Oisei hayom. On that day, they offered the Bechoros, which implies that it was a one-chance deal. Hudu on that day, they brought the Bechoros. Past that point, Bechoros were no longer offered, because there was no Kedushas Bechor. That's right to Rish Lakish, actually. Igad Armi, there was a different version of this whole discussion. Eisvei Rish Lakish Rabbi Yochanan. That actually Rish Lakish was the one who presented this price as a challenge to Rabbi Yochanan, who says that there were Bechoros in the Midbar. Oisei hayom shukam Mishkan Karvelam Yisrael. Right, the same brayso. But now it's Rish Lakish posing it as a riot to himself and a kash to Rabbi Yochanan. Oisei hayom. Apparently it was a one-day opportunity. Past that point, they had no Bechoros. They had no access to Bechoros, which supports my point that there was no Bechoros in the Midbar. Ema, we can revise the meaning of the brayso. It wasn't just a one-time opportunity. It was starting. That day was a starting point for these karbanis. So what's the point of the brayso then? To tell you that you could only bring these karbanis starting from that day in the Mishkan, but initially, when they had the bamais, the unofficial, mizbeach, was not suitable for these karbanis. Alma, why? Because you can't. Apparently, you can't bring obligatory karbanis in a bama that you can only do in the Mishkan. So that's why they had to save them for the Mishkan. This, of course, is going on the Chatas and the Asham and the Bechor. Not Dharma Davis, they were donated, they were okay about it, but at least those that are obligatory are limited to the Mishkan going forward, but not beforehand. Tashma. Here comes another proof to Rabbi Yochanan that the Bechor system was active in the Midbar as well. So the brayso says like this. It turns out that we have 3 points in history regarding Bechor. B'shloisha mekoimos kachu Bechoros l'Yisrael. Kedushas Bechor amongst Yisrael was activated, was applied 3 times. B'Mitzrayim, upon leaving Mitzrayim. Right, so the ones that were saved in lieu of the Bechor of Mitzrayim experienced that great miracle, and certainly they were now committed to Hashem's service all the way. Midbar, even in the Midbar, we had this system active. Upon entry to Eretz Yisrael. How do we know? Mitzrayim, it says Bechor. Right? Instead of the Bechor of Mitzrayim, I took the Bechor of Yisrael. They have Kedusha. But Midbar it says Bechor Ibnei Yisrael. What does it say when we enter Eretz Yisrael? So we activate the system upon entering Eretz Yisrael, which sounds like Rabbi Yochanan, that even in the Midbar was very much active. The brayso means b'shleishim mekoimos huzru ala Bechoros l'kadosh. the pasuk refers to the Kedushas Bechoros 3 times. But really, the Kedusha wasn't necessarily activated during all those times. You mean to say even in Mitzrayim it wasn't Kaddish? How come in the Kaddish? We clarified that point. Even according to Rish Lakish, there was Kedusha for the first crop of Bechorim leaving Mitzrayim. He meant to say like this: Mehem Kachu, Mehem like Kachu. That although the pasuk alludes to it 3 times, some of them is a reference to the active system, such as Mitzrayim, such as entering Eretz Yisrael, but in the Midbar it was not active. I have a question. There was no activation of the Bechor system in the Midbar. Pasuk says you have to count up all the Bechor, right? And then the Leviim, right, took care of them, etc. As we're discussing through the whole sugya. Apparently, the newborn, they're talking about a month old there. Ben Chodesh v'Machlo, new crop, the new Bechorim. Says the Gemara, you know what? You're right. We have to revise the whole discussion. Rather, if it was learned, it was as follows. Rabbi Yechon Amar Kodesh v'Lei Pasku. Once the Kedusha was activated upon leaving Mitzrayim, Loi Pasku. It was never suspended. Rish Lakish Amar Kachu Pasku. He says the Kedusha was activated upon leaving Mitzrayim and maintained itself throughout the count in the Midbar, as we showed, right? But once that count was accomplished, that's it. It was suspended until further notice, until entering Eretz Yisrael. What's the Rish Lakish's position? It's based on the pasuk. Right? That's reactivated only upon entering Eretz Yisrael. El Rabbi Yechon, my time. What's Rabbi Yechon's rationale? Why does he insist that the Bechor system was active throughout the Midbar? My time. Rabbi Lazar. Rabbi Lazar was a Talmud Rabbi Yechon who seek to clarify his Rebbe's position. Says, guess what? I had an amazing dream last night. Rabbi Yechon, my Rebbe, Chazoi B'chalma, I saw in a dream, Chazoi B'chalma, and now I know that I'm going to achieve proper clarity, proper understanding in his words. Umilsa, Mal Yas Amin, I'll certainly be zeicha to say good things today. I'm going to have a good explanation. In fact, he followed suit. Amakro, he says, look at the pasuk. Li Yiyu. The Bechorim will be Li Yiyu, they'll be mine. Pavyos and you. It's an eternal designation with no suspensions. What does Rabbi Yechon do to Rish Lakish's pasuk? Which seems to indicate that the Bechor system only got activated upon entering Eretz Yisrael. Oh, that's for a totally different drasha. Talmud Bishmoel, it's for that. Which Talmud Bishmoel taught us. Hashem is promising, Asay mitzvah, Zu, please, adhere to this mitzvah of Bechor, Shebeshvila, do it now, Shebeshvila, because on account of that mitzvah, as a reward of that mitzvah, Tikkunas La'aretz will merit entering Eretz Yisrael. Amalei Rav Mordechai Rav Ashi. So Mordechai told Rav Ashi, you have this version of Rabbi Yechon and Rish Lakish. Atun, you hochi masnisla, you have studied it in this version. Anan, but us, we had a different version. If chamasnila, we had a different version, just the opposite. Rabbi Yechon Amar like Kodesh Bechoros v'Midbar. Rabbi Yechon says there was no Kedushas Bechor in the Midbar. Rish Lakish says there was. Rish Lakish Amar Kodesh Bechoros v'Midbar. Amalei, he says v'afchas namit yufta. So you're switching everything around. The kashas that were posed between Rabbi Yechon to Rish Lakish are now being posed in the reverse between Rish Lakish to Rabbi Yechon, and also Rabbi Lazar, right, who was known to be a Talmud of Rabbi Yechon. You mean to say that he was looking to explain Rish Lakish, which is unlikely? He says, no, let me explain to you. I'm not switching the positions, the halachic opinions. No, I'm just I'm modifying the terms, the words used to address these positions. Amarlei Loi Kitchu. What I meant to say, that Rabbi Yechon, who says Loi Kitchu, he didn't mean there was no Kedushas Bechor in the middle. Just the opposite. He held that there was Kedushas Bechor, as we had understood until this point. Loi Kitchu means Loi Hushach Li Kadosh. There was no need to apply a special kedusha, you don't consciously go out and be mekadosh the bechorah, because the system had already been activated upon leaving Mitzrayim, and that was active throughout the midbar as well. It's really kaddish. And Rosh Lakish held, actually, you have to be mekadosh, meaning it doesn't have to do as a bechorah. If you want to be makrav, you can bring it as a separate different card. Mekadosh as a card, but bechorah concept was suspended. So it's in line with the previous version, just the wording is a bit different. Yochanan the dance, he said, okay, so then you're saying exactly, identically like us. I mean, so what are you changing? The positions are still the same. Rabbi Yechon says there was Kedushas Bechorah, and Midrash says there wasn't. Kamash, from the point there is, he's teaching us Shechayev Adam Loim B'Shem Rabbi, a person is obligated to repeat in verbatim as his Rebbe had stated as the source. So he was just sort of correcting the wordiology, but not the actual positions, which stayed the same. Okay, so we learned about Kedushas Bechorah, which started upon leaving Mitzrayim, continued on the Midbar to a certain extent, and over to Eretz Yisrael, where it was certainly active. It applies to Bechor Adam, Bechor Behema Tameya, such as the firstborn donkey and the firstborn Behema Tahira. Now, the Levim and the Midbar exempted the Bechoros Yisrael. Therefore, they certainly could exempt themselves, so they're already fully designated for Hashem's service and Hashem's people, and that's sort of all-encompassing and addresses their Bechorah element within them as well, which need not be tended to separately. And a Chiddush that one seh can technically address many Chamorim, and we discussed the Machlekes, Talmud Bavli and Rosh Lakish, all agree that the ones that left Mitzrayim had Kedushas Bechorah. Likewise, upon entering Eretz Yisrael with Kedushas Bechorah in the Midbar, is up for Machlekes. Okay, thank you so much for joining. All the best to you. Atzlacha Rabbah.